Welcome to Time Monk Radio Network. I'm Gemini, and we are welcoming back Susan Weed as part of our Health and Wellness series. Tonight, we are delving into the topic of dealing with prostate cancer. Hello, Susan. Thank you for joining us again this evening, and let's get started on dealing with prostate cancer.
Can you hear me, grandson? Grandfather Growth calls to you. You are distressed at the thought of cancer in your body, and especially cancer between your legs. You feel betrayed. You are angry. You are hurt. You are even afraid. What lies ahead? I know you want to shut your eyes and block your ears and submit passively to whatever treatment the doctor recommends. But grandson, that is not the path to health. It is not the path to your wholeness. Open your heart to me. Allow me to walk with you through this challenging path, dear child. I am here to stand with you. It is true, this path may lead to your death, but it may also lead to a reawakening of your life. Do you dare to explore the possibilities? Step 0, do nothing. Men are at least 10 times more likely to be harmed than helped by treatment of early-stage symptomless prostate cancer, I quote. I know it may seem irresponsible to do nothing if you've had a biopsy and it comes back cancerous, but it isn't. A wiser decision will come after the waves of emotion have washed through us. Modern medicine plays on our fears and says, act fast. But men who wait up to 3 months between their diagnosis and their treatment fared absolutely no worse than men who started their treatment immediately. Nor did the use of hormone therapy during that interval improve the outcome. I quote, not all men with prostate cancer should receive the same treatment. In some cases, no treatment is the best option. For early-stage prostate cancer, drugs and surgery are no more effective in extending life than watchful waiting. A 15-year study done in the United States concluded that 2/3 of prostate cancer patients do not require urgent treatment. A Swedish study found that surgical removal of a cancerous prostate reduced mortality but worsened the quality of life. And after 5 years, there was no significant difference between the men who'd had surgery and those who elected watchful waiting in terms of overall survival. Of 223 men with early-stage prostate cancer who received no treatment at all, only 11% of them died within 15 years, and only 25% of them died within 20 years. I quote, choosing a treatment for your prostate cancer is pretty tricky business. I quote, men who are diagnosed with prostate cancer often neglect their own preferences because doctors give falsely optimistic information about the effectiveness of treatments. They give biased, incomplete, and confusing information and downplay the side effects if they even mention them at all. 3/4 of men aged 80 have cancer cells in the prostate. The vast majority of prostate cancers, that's 80% or more of prostate cancers, grow so slowly that something else is going to kill you. 1 out of every 6 men in America will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, but it is fatal in only 1 out of 34 men who are diagnosed. Every year, 250,000 American men are diagnosed with prostate cancer. It is the second most common cancer and the second most likely to kill. Race affects your risk more than 50-fold. Asian men, particularly Chinese men, have the lowest rates, while African Americans have the highest incidence of prostate cancer in the world. If your brother or father had prostate cancer, or if your sister or mother had breast cancer, your risk is doubled. If 2 of them are diagnosed, your risk is quadrupled. The earliest evidence of prostate cancer is in a 3,000-year-old mummy, although there are those who say that they have found prostate cancer cells in remains dated to 40,000 years ago. What can we say? Prostate cancer is not news. It's been with us for a very, very long time. It has to do with the life cycle of the prostate. Remember back to our very first week together when we were talking about how the prostate basically is an unnoticed organ for the first half of a man's life. It gets to its full size at puberty and then it goes to sleep. And while it is affected and adversely affected by environmental things, it doesn't have a way to repair any of that damage. Hormonal changes that start around midlife wake up the prostate, and some prostates are able to reverse the cancerous changes that are already present there, and in others they are not able to do that. Last week we talked about how to prevent prostate cancers, and now we're talking about what to do if you've actually gotten a diagnosis. But again, remembering that getting a diagnosis is not as huge a step from not having it as, say, breast cancer. All right? It's a very big difference. Again, for the vast majority of men, for over 80% of men, having prostate cancer is a non-issue and does not need to be treated. If you have a diagnosis of prostate cancer, you might wish to do these things. First of all, reduce your dietary fat. With both breast cancer and prostate cancer, we have certainly found that an exceedingly low-fat diet does change the overall prognosis and include longevity. I won't lie, a low-fat diet is no fun and it's not very flavorful. The ultimate goal is that you are looking toward removing all fat from the diet, because believe me, there will still be hidden fat there. You can't live if you removed all fat from your diet, but getting it down to 20% can be pretty difficult, especially if you're going to eat an ounce of ground cooked flaxseed every day. See, that's where some of your hidden fat is going to come. It's a lot, isn't it? A whole ounce of ground cooked flaxseed. But I'll tell you, the studies are staggering. They've done them both with breast cancers and with prostate cancers, and they take groups of women and groups of men who've had biopsies, who've been shown to have breast cancer or prostate cancer, and they put them in a double-blind study, and they give them a muffin every day. And some of those muffins have 30 grams, 1 ounce of ground cooked flax in them, and some of them don't. And the people don't know which muffin they're getting, and the people passing them out don't know which muffin they're getting, and the people who subsequently do surgery, because all of these people have agreed to surgery, who operate on the prostates and breasts of these people, they know. How do they know? They say they can tell because the tumors, they have the radiological evidence of what the tumor was and where it was, and the tumors generally are shrunk by more than half, or in many instances apparently completely gone. Is it worthwhile to eat an ounce of ground-cooked flaxseed daily? I don't know. I don't like flaxseed that much, but maybe if I was faced with cancer, I would find a way to like it. Tomato sauce or tomato juice needs to be cooked tomatoes, dried tomato pate, yum, yum, yum. Anything you like, get more tomato in you. In fact, it's recommended that if you have a diagnosis of prostate cancer, that you eat cooked tomato at every single meal. Increase of phytoestrogens or phytosterols in the diet. We've been talking about the wonderful effect that these have, and that they can actually blockade the receptors on the cancer cells and prevent them from getting the hormones that they need to be healthy and to proliferate. All kinds of beans, all kinds of lentils, and that includes astragalus and red clover, provide these protective phytosterols or phytoestrogens. But lentils go one step further. Lentils actually contain a repair kit that goes into the DNA and repairs damaged DNA. And that's true even if you are genetically disposed to breast or prostate cancers. We were talking about if your father or your brother or your mother or your sister, and how that increases your risk. But eating lentils and drinking red clover infusion decreases it by that much. I personally rely very heavily on red clover infusion, although it's true, I eat lentils probably on a weekly basis. I like lentils a lot. But I make sure to drink a quart of red clover infusion on a weekly basis to hedge my bets. about any kind of cancer. I'm not worried about prostate cancer, and I'm not actually worried about breast cancer either, but I'm so glad to know that I have that red clover there to back me up. Walking for 30 minutes a day is a wonderful treatment if you've been diagnosed with prostate cancer. I know you feel like, oh, I should have done this beforehand, but you know what? It's not too late. Walking is one of the great tonics. It not only helps to reduce the inflammation from the cancer, it helps to circulate the blood, and this can actually help your immune system to get rid of the cancer. And probably the best thing that walking does for us is walking really opens, broadens, and elevates our mood. And when we're faced with a cancer diagnosis, let's face it, our mood goes down. We're not that happy. And walking can somehow bring that back so that dealing with it becomes doable. We all get to the point where we feel unhappy, and then we feel kind of stuck, like we can't really do anything. Some people call it depressed. Walking is an antidepressant, and it's good for the prostate, too. Okay. Men who are treated for prostate cancer fare better both mentally and physically when they have the support of a partner, and that's regardless of their age, their ethnicity, the disease stage, or the treatment that they choose. Fatty fish. Back to fatty fish. Not only do they prevent prostate cancer, but men who regularly eat those fatty fish, remember that salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, and anchovies, are 48% less likely to die of their prostate cancer. That's enough to ask for anchovies on your pizza now, isn't it? Twice a week consumption of these fatty fish reduces the growth of prostate tumors by 17%. When mice who were genetically prone to prostate tumors were fed the equivalent of 8 cups of green or black tea a day, their growth rate was slowed, the spread to lymph nodes was inhibited, hormone concentration linked to prostate cancer decreased, and angiogenesis, that's the growth of blood vessels to the tumor, was reduced. However, even very high doses of green tea failed to reduce PSA levels in patients with metastatic prostate cancer, and it caused severe adverse effects. Foods that can help prevent prostate cancer are not always capable of reversing it. Men who consume the most calcium have a significantly increased risk, 2 times more likely, of being diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. The largest study to date has found that men getting more than 2 grams of calcium a day from supplements are 60% more likely to develop prostate cancer than those who get less than 700 milligrams a day. Interestingly enough, high consumption of fructose and high blood levels of vitamin D neutralize the result of excessive calcium consumption. Let's look at some herbs that can be helpful to us. Licorice infusion, that's 1 to 2 cups a day, or 1 to 2 deglycerized tablets of licorice a day, suppresses testosterone quite quickly. Avoid licorice, however, if you have kidney problems or are taking blood pressure drugs. Bright yellow turmeric root, a common component of curry, kills cancer. Tumor necrotic factors in the immune system team up with its active ingredient, curcumin, to kill 80% of prostate cancer cells that they can find. A dose is a teaspoonful a day. Fortunately, turmeric is tasty enough to eat regularly, and this is one herb where if you have to, you could take it in capsules. Teaspoon is not too much to put into scrambled eggs. A teaspoon is not too much to put into your lentils. And you know what? Lentils taste really good with turmeric in it. 1, 2, goodbye, cancer. Incidence of prostate cancer was reduced by 1/3, and mortality from advanced prostate cancer reduced by 41% when men in their 50s and 60s took 500 IUs of vitamin E daily, except for smokers who need to take 100 IU a day. However, men who took the zinc supplements were twice as likely to develop and be diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer. modified citrus pectin, which is a product that you can get, slows the progression of recurrences in men who have undergone conventional treatments. Ralph Blum, who's a prostate cancer survivor, uses colloidal silver to stop blood flow to his tumor and to prevent metastasis. Do you notice what I put that in with? In other words, I don't think of colloidal silver as a truly natural product. I put it in with the other supplements, things that are very drug-like and that are actually fairly likely to have some consequences as well. You probably saw the Blue Man, right, Dawn?
Yes.
The man and who took too much colloidal silver there and it turned blue. So
Yes.
again, when I talk about breast cancer, I say, look, we're talking about 100 different diseases. And I haven't actually heard that in terms of prostate cancer, but we do know that it's very individual. And for some people, simply visualizing and even, using some homeopathic remedies can be enough to damp down their prostate cancer so that they can live long enough to die from something else. We get really frightened when we hear the word cancer, but when we put prostate in front of it, it's almost like we're saying, hey, this is a different kind of thing. Let's look at some of the drugs that are actually used and whether or not we would want to take them. Androgens feed prostate cancer. Androgen deprivation therapy is chemical castration. Drugs, rather than surgery, remove the testes. Side effects, of course, include low libido, impotence, osteoporosis, hot flashes, breast enlargement, periodontal disease, anemia, fatigue, and loss of memory. Long-term use of androgen deprivation therapy is associated with a 50% increase in the risk of bone cancer, diabetes, coronary artery disease, heart attack, and sudden cardiac death. Worth it? Maybe not. Androgen deprivation therapy stops working after 2 to 3 years. Side effects definitely outweigh the benefits, except in men with cancer cells in the lymph nodes who've already had the prostate removed, and they can actually probably use these drugs to eke out a little more time. Unfortunately, androgen deprivation therapy is routinely given to men, even men whose cancer is confined to the prostate, and its use has steadily increased since it has been introduced to the market, and there is no resulting increase in men's longevity. Men with prior health problems are twice as likely to die from their prostate cancer if they use androgen deprivation therapy. Inevitably, advanced prostate cancers become hormone independent, and then there is simply no effective therapy. PSA levels fell by at least half for the vast majority of men with advanced hormone-sensitive prostate cancer who took capital P, capital C, dash, capital S, capital P, capital E, capital S. PC SPEES. It lowers PSA levels by half for 3/4 of other prostate cancer patients as well, and provides significant decreases in pain. Some people who took it remained cancer-free for up to a year. PC SPEES was developed by Chinese-American chemist Dr. Sophie Chen, and it includes 8 herbs, including saw palmetto and Chinese ginseng, in addition to hormonal drugs. So it is a kind of androgen deprivation therapy, even though it is marketed as a herbal therapy. Side effects are virtually the same, with the inclusion of nausea and diarrhea. Have you heard there's a new vaccine called Provenge, and it increases the lifespan of men with late-stage prostate cancer by about 4 months with modest trade-off in side effect. It's a pretty interesting thing that they do. They actually take blood from the man with prostate cancer, and they mix it with a protein that is found on most prostate cancer cells, and they let it grow. And then they give this back to the man as a vaccine. It's given in 3 infusions, 2 weeks apart. And remember before I said that the immune system was able to eliminate about 80% of the cancer cells that they find. But the difficulty there is that cancer cells disguise themselves. And so the immune system can't always finds them all. The Provenge, it's like turning a black light on. It's like the immune system suddenly sees those cancer cells and can go after them. Worried about surgery-related impotence, men who take erectile dysfunction drugs nightly after their prostatectomy fare no better than those who take them only as needed. And there are herbs that are so much better to help us with these problems. And I have a chapter on those herbs, of course, in the penis chapter, in Down There, Sexual and Reproductive Health, the Wise Woman Way. One of the things that I have in Down There are stories from people. In the parts about women, they're her stories, and the parts about men, they're his stories. Jason is a surgeon. He says, I have come to feel that there is a great loneliness among men who carry the diagnosis of prostate cancer. The illness arises and is tackled in a male world, one in which feelings are not readily revealed and burdens are often shouldered in isolation. Perhaps it takes a doctor turned patient to share the emotional experience of having prostate cancer to reveal everyone's sense of vulnerability and fear through a personal story. Every traveler forges his own path through a thicket of information, decisions, hopes, and consequences. Nothing, not family, not friends, not knowledge, not level of education, not money, not power on earth, nothing can insulate a man from the anguish caused by the threat contained in the word cancer. Perhaps that's why so many men diagnosed with prostate cancer choose surgery. I quote, no one knows which treatment option is the best. Radical prostatectomy, radiation therapy, or watchful waiting, they are all acceptable, and there is no clear-cut evidence for the superiority of any one of them. Is watchful waiting really safe? In one group of 700 men under the age of 75, all diagnosed with prostate cancer by biopsy, 90% of those who had surgery and 85% of those who didn't survived for 10 years. In another group, 10-year survival was 72%, and those opting for watchful waiting, 75%, and those who chose radiation therapy, and 83% for those who chose surgery. I quote, try to imagine your life after you've had a radical prostatectomy. Try to imagine yourself as impotent. What would it be like? Try to imagine your life after radiation therapy. Try to imagine that you are suffering from permanent urinary or bowel irritation. What would it be like? Try to imagine that you do nothing, but go and allow yourself to be closely monitored to see what's happening with the cancer every 3 to 6 months. You know which imaginal thing you could really live. Radical prostatectomy removes the entire prostate under general anesthesia. Men younger than 70 and men with aggressive tumors who choose prostatectomy are half as likely to die. Impotence is the most common side effect of radical prostatectomy and is experienced by up to 70% of men who choose this surgery. The nerves that promote erection lie under the prostate in a nervovascular bundle. If the surgeon so much as tugs on or stresses those nerves, they die. They don't even have to cut through them. Regeneration, if it occurs, takes about 3 years. If the neurovascular bundle is not removed and not damaged, half of men in their 60s with no erection problems prior to surgery will have an erection in about 12 months after the surgery if they use erectile drugs. Men who have their prostate gland removed become incontinent immediately after surgery, and regaining urinary control can take anywhere from a month to a couple of years. In fact, some men remain incontinent indefinitely. HIFU, high-intensity focused ultrasound, heats and destroys prostate cancer without incontinence and impotence. Countries including Canada, Mexico, and England permit HIFU. But you'll have to go there because you can't get this treatment in the United States. Taking aspirin or any nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory prior to radiation therapy will improve your survival. After 10 years, 91% of those who took aspirin or any nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drug before the radiation therapy were still alive. That's 91% as compared to 68% of those who didn't take it. Radiation can be done externally or internally. External radiation uses X-ray beams, which tend to spread out and damage tissue even at low intensities. More than half of men who choose radiation against prostate cancer will gradually, over a few years, permanently lose their potency. In 56% of men, the radiation causes rectal inflammation and bleeding. It's only 37% when targeted conformal radiation is used, which is the hot new thing. Up to 30% of all radiated men suffer permanent damage to the blood vessels of the rectum, leading to bowel urgency and very painful hemorrhoids. Radiation causes constricted urine flow in 8% of men and urinary incontinence in 4%. External radiation leaves cancer cells about half the time. And so more and more men are going for internal radiation, which is called brachytherapy. 60 or so radioactive cesium-131 pellets are implanted in the prostate, usually under general anesthesia. The rate of sexual, urinary, and bowel problems is about the same as undergoing surgery. Among 2,000 men in their 50s who had brachytherapy, 85% were cancer-free 10 years later. The nice thing about using radioactive cesium-131 is that your sweetheart will only be pregnant for 3 months as opposed to 2 years if he uses iodine Z's. I talked to a woman whose husband had this, and I said, "You're sleeping in the same bed with him?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm past childbearing age. I guess it's okay. But really, your man is going to be radioactive, girls." Cryosurgery destroys tissue with freezing. It was used initially to salvage prostate cancer patients who failed to respond to radiation or whose cancer recurred, but now it's actually considered an alternative for initial treatment. Unfortunately, morbidity, that's death, remains quite high, and cancer cells persist in a fairly high proportion of the men treated, but hey, cancer cells remain in a fairly high proportion of the men treated in any way at all. The prostate. It starts out life as a uterus. Oh my gosh. It can't get enough estrogen, and so it has to become a specialized organ in men. It's like a big fluffy bagel with a hole in the middle, and the tube that lets out the urine runs through it. At puberty, the prostate achieves its full size. It goes into a hibernation, which is broken at midlife by hormonal changes. The prostate begins to swell. That swelling is BPH. It can cause an elevation in PSA, and it can cause LUTS. There are excellent herbal allies for men experiencing this problem. One of the reasons we do PSA tests is we can't tell the difference between benign swelling and cancerous swelling. But if we choose our foods wisely and exercise well, then we don't have to worry because we know we're doing everything we can to prevent prostate cancer. We're eating our pizza cold for breakfast with a little fish on it and lots of extra garlic. We know that the nourishing herbal infusions that we're drinking, the nettle, the red clover, are helping our bodies to deal with any cancer cells that might be present and to get rid of them. We are not allowing ourselves to be terrified into doing things because some doctor tells us we need to do them. We understand that we can take the time to really promote health, and we don't have to be at war against disease. We know that while cancer is scary, prostate cancer is the least scary of cancers. It can kill. We don't want to neglect that, but you're much more likely to die of something else. Here's to the health of every prostate. Here's to your health if you have a prostate, and here's to the health of the prostate of your mate if you're going to be passing this information on. This is Susun Weed. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for opening your hearts and your minds to the wise woman way of healing by nourishing the unique individual. Green blessings, everybody.
Thank you, Susan. Be sure to join us next week when Susan will return to discuss breast cancer risks and how to reduce them. On behalf of Time Monk Radio, be well.